So, a bit of a disclaimer here. Depression is a serious mental health issue caused by emotional stress, genetics, biochemistry, and various environmental factors leading to a chronic lack of serotonin in your brain. Making this will not actually cure your depression, but making small behavioral changes like making this doll may alleviate some symptoms. And this mainly deals with my experience in a way that I will hope you find useful. So I like to start with the face here because it helps me set the size for the rest of the body. And I'll be working on Luxe White Fleece, though you can use whatever fabric you like. I generally recommend Luxe or Anti-Pill Fleece if you want one. Just try and stay away from the really cheap stuff because it makes your final product look really cheap as well. But you know, it's your own project, go wild. Use whatever fabric you want. So as you can see here, I'm starting with a sketch, and as I transfer this to the felt, I make some changes to it to make it a little cuter with some larger eyes. And the pen I'm using there is Disappearing ink, though you can also use pencil or chalk if you don't have that handy. Though I do really recommend getting a Disappearing ink pen because it comes off very cleanly. Now, when doing embroidery work, it pays dividends to be precise in where you place your needle. Just be careful, take your time, and don't be afraid to re-poke your needle through if you don't get it just right. Now, one thing that some people don't really seem to understand about depression is that it's not necessarily just sadness, although there's plenty of that. It's more of a persistent state of feeling just nothing at periods of like weeks or even months. And it's a really hard rut to get yourself out of, because it makes just doing basic life upkeep things very difficult. And it's absolutely true that getting out and running and eating healthier and cleaning your room up a bit will help, but that requires motivation, and depression takes that away from you. Now, when connecting lines here, you want to take your needle and almost push your previous thread right out of the way, and you want to put your needle in right behind it. If you poke your needle in front, it leaves a little gap, and if you push through the thread, it will leave a little bulge, but that can be very decorative if you want to continue like that. Also, keep in mind that when you're making stitches longer than about half a centimeter in length, it will tend to pull your fabric, so it's a good idea to use your marks as a guide and not your previous stitching. Precision is key when doing this kind of work, but don't sweat the small stuff if it doesn't end up perfect. After all, you already have enough to worry about. So to get back that motivation, you're going to trick your brain into thinking you've actually accomplished something, just to remind your brain what dopamine is like. And you do this with small, attainable goals, just small accomplishments, like making a little doll. I usually find that if it's creative or constructive in some way, it helps a lot. And I mean, I've seen the guides online where it's like, ooh, just make some peppermint tea and take a bath, and like, it doesn't really help. And neither does tackling a large task like cleaning the entire house. Small goals. Pick up the dishes that have been sitting on your floor for a week. Throw the clothes in your laundry that you've been neglecting for the past month. And not to be understated is just the importance of even a little bit of physical exercise. Just take a run around the block once a day. I know, it's very difficult, but physical exercise does so much for your mental health. Regular exercise induces physiological changes to your body, one of which is through chemical messengers, which is where the problem of depression lies. Just focus on small changes, then worry about the large stuff later. So what I'm doing here is backstitching. I found it generally makes for nicer curves when doing embroidery. And we're just going to go ahead and finish up the eyes here, and we're done. It's a bit of a mess in the back, but that's alright. No one will ever know.
No one will ever know!
So for sketching the body, we're going to go ahead and make it a little bit oval. I'm lining up the face there to get an idea of size. And rule of thumb, you want this to be like 1.5 times larger than you want the profile to be. Because math. Hey look, I made a thing to explain it this time. And just fold your patterns in half to keep them symmetrical. Then we just trace, cut, and flip. Now, you don't really need a sewing machine for this, but it helps out if you do have one. Oh, and when you're sewing faux fur, be sure to cut a little wide when you cut your patterns out, because sometimes fur can get caught on the other side of the seam line, and when we pull that out later, we don't want that cut off. So invert, check your work, then take a needle and pull all the fur that got trapped on the seam out, revert, trim all the excess off, invert again, and stuff only with good vibes. And yikes, let's just pull that one back out. Alright, he's looking pretty good. Now, you could invert this and just machine stitch the face on, but with small dolls like this, I think it's just better to hand stitch it on anyway. Because it gives you a little more control and you can get it placed and faced in the direction you want. I'm going to start at the bottom, anchor it in place, folding under the edge, then run the needle up behind the face to the top and hold it in place there as well. This makes sure to keep everything symmetrical. I mean, you can also use pins for this, but I don't really like them getting in my way. And as we go along, I'm just going to use the tip of the needle to fold the fabric underneath. First going up one side and then the other, trying to keep it symmetrical. I bowed out here on the cheek on accident, but I kind of like the look, so I'm just going to keep it on the other side. Before it gets fully closed up, we're just going to add a little bit of stuffing to shape the face. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a mane. I didn't have to do this by hand, but it definitely helps with hiding the stitching. If you're machine sewing the face on, you could just put this in between the face and the body. You're also not going to get out of depression without eating regular meals, because it puts your body in survival mode. Even something cheap like ramen can be fixed up to be made amazing. So to hide the stitching, I just go ahead and ladder stitch it on up, keeping it tight on the head and in the opposite direction so that when I'm finished, I can just kind of roll it over onto the front. Trace, stitch, trim, invert, and finally anchor into place and then ladder stitch on. Looks great. Let's knock out the horns. So there's a million ways you could do this, but I think they actually look fine as cinnamon rolls, and they're really easy to do like this anyway. So for the legs here, I don't even bother using patterns, I'm just counting stitches. 11 down, make a 45-degree angle, 3 down, make a 45-degree angle, 6 across, make a 45-degree angle, 3 across, make a 45-degree angle, and finally go 11 back up. And I just add an extra stitch for doing the back legs to make them a little longer. Shh, it's okay, it'll be over quick. But yeah, stab some holes where the legs should be. And definitely don't be lazy and just super glue them in place. Well, that's pretty adorable. Soul, no soul, soul, no soul. I can't decide. He looks lonely though. Let's give him a friend. So I will be selling these on Etsy if you want to go buy them there. I'll be selling them for $30. I hope that's a fair price. I could probably make these things a little faster if I wanted to. Or if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, leave them in the comments below. I'll definitely read them. I have like 2 subscribers and like 100 views total on my videos. So yeah, I'll be able to read every comment. And if you like this content and want to see more, please donate to my Patreon. I will continue to make this content for free, but if it pays my bills, there will be regular content. So I've made 3 very different kinds of videos now. I mean, I think I'd like to say I'm improving. But you know, let me know what you like and what you want to see more of. It might help me know what kind of direction I want to take this channel in. Thank you, and good night.